Hi there, I'm Dr. Jowdy with the Institute for Restorative Health. Today we're going to have a discussion on the immune system. As you can see by the slide here, I saw this statement online recently. Can you still get regular sick, or is it all COVID? My first inclination was to laugh. Then it got me thinking that with fall and winter coming soon, and the country still dealing with the effects of the coronavirus pandemic, this would be a great time to talk about the immune system and ways that you can support yourself outside of just wearing masks and social distancing. So a term that's been floated around a lot in regards to COVID-19 and also many other viruses and things like it in the past is herd immunity. And I wanted to give a little bit of background on what that actually means to have some correlation to how we can affect our immune systems. So this information comes from WebMD. When enough people are resistant to the cause of a disease, such as a virus or a bacteria, it has nowhere else to go. While not every individual may be immune, the group as a whole has protection. This is because there are fewer high-risk people overall, infection rates drop, and the disease dies out. Herd immunity protects at-risk populations. These include babies, those who have weak immune systems, and also can't get resistance on their own. So one of the big questions is achieving herd immunity. Now there are a lot of unknowns with COVID-19, so it's still a work in progress on what herd immunity could look like for that, but in the overall scheme of how to achieve herd immunity, you can develop resistance naturally. When your body is exposed to a virus or bacteria, it makes antibodies to fight off the infection. When you recover, your body keeps these antibodies. Then your body will defend itself against another infection, and it will also defend itself over the same infection if it were to come back. This is what happened and stopped the Zika virus outbreak in Brazil a number of years ago. And they found that 63% of the population had exposure to the virus, and that created a herd immunity for that particular virus. Now, that's not to say 63% is enough for other viruses and other things that are out there. Many other things, measles, mumps, there's been levels of herd immunity reached for some of those conditions as well, and those numbers were much higher. So again, with COVID-19, we're going to wait and see what those numbers might be as time goes on. So in looking at these immune cells, right, we want to see what is it that the body creates that helps us fight off disease and protects us from the environment. And we're looking at lymphocytes, B cells, and T cells as some of the immune regulatory cells that our bodies can make. Lymphocytes, as their name, develop in the lymph nodes, also in the thymus and the spleen. So they are responsible for cellular immunity. That means immunity on a cell level inside of our body. B cells regulate antibody production. And so they are responsible for what's called humoral or blood and fluid level immunity. These types of antibodies, again, if we have antibodies against a condition, then they help us against future issues, future contraction or future exposure to these things. Antibodies made by B cells are proteins that attack foreign invaders. They see something that's foreign to the body and then they go after it. Memory T cells act fast to recognize a foreign body that has attached before. So again, this is that long-term immune effect that we're looking for. Acting together, these cells provide the body with powerful defenses against infection. So folks, your body has the ability to fight off infections on its own if it's given the right parameters, if you have a strong immune system, and if the environment is suitable for you to adapt. So we want to look at, what are the causes of weak immunity? What are the things that could happen that could weaken our immune system? And in looking at this, we want to know what things take our immune system's attention and function away from the microbes they need to address, away from toxins that they need to address, away from any stress from the outside that our body needs to be able to handle. It could be that the energy of our body the energy that our body needs to heal, I should say, is being used to deal with something foreign from the environment. So energy is being stolen away from a job it should be doing internally. Or maybe we're creating enough healing energy because our body is missing something it needs. You should always consult with your doctor to determine if any of these things we're going to talk about are affecting you or need to be addressed. but we want to give you an overview of some of the things that could go wrong to cause your immune system to weaken. And at the end, I'm going to talk about some general and basic solutions that we can implement that can help grow our immune system and support us at this time. So one of the big ones is environmental toxicity. There's a lot of things out in the environment and in nature that are working against the proper function of our body. And what they do is they come in and they're foreign invaders. So our body sees them and generally wants to attack if it has the strength to do so. If not, it creates inflammation, creates free radicals, which are basically they're compounds that are floating around our body without electrons that are acting wildly, okay? And they're causing damage to our tissues and cells. And we need to they're oxidative, and we need to create antioxidants to calm them down and help the body get rid of them. So there's a lot of chemicals and there's a lot of toxins in the environment that create free radical damage. And that damage usually occurs to mucous membranes, which are some of our first lines of defense against infections, and the linings of our tissues and our organs internally. One of the blood cells that's actually created to combat this are called neutrophils, and they are they're a white blood cell that's created specifically to deal with initially inflammation. So if our body has strength to create those neutrophils, we can deal with inflammation. If we don't, or if we have too much toxicity, those neutrophils get used up too fast. So avoiding environmental toxins is a big deal when it comes to the immune system. The next thing we look at is adrenal fatigue. Okay, and adrenal fatigue is typically caused by long-term stress. Our adrenal glands are an organ that helps our bodies adapt to any type of stress, whether it's physical stress, chemical stress, or emotional stress. One of the main chemicals created in the adrenals is cortisol. And cortisol actually helps to regulate our immune response. Without it, you may be at increased susceptibility to infections, especially infections to the upper respiratory tract. So the farther along in adrenal fatigue you are, the likelihood is you're creating less cortisol, dealing less with inflammation, dealing less with infections, and again, especially affecting the upper respiratory tract. That's super important right now. Underactive thyroid function. Many times this is a common occurrence secondary to adrenal fatigue. It's also commonly caused by autoimmune conditions. So when we look at an autoimmune condition, the word immune is embedded right in there. That means that the immune system is attacking something in our body. It's attacking one of our organs, or it's attacking one of our glands. So if we have an autoimmune thyroid condition, that means our immune system is spending its time attacking the thyroid, and it's probably not spending enough time attacking microbes, toxins, and anything that causes inflammation. So if we have an underactive thyroid, it goes hand in hand with saying we likely have a depressed or an underactive or confused immune system. So again, addressing all of these things with your doctor would be helpful. So it's not always, you don't always know if you have adrenal fatigue. You don't always know if you have an underactive thyroid. So if you have a doctor or you're looking for someone, these are things that we can help here at the Institute for Restorative Health, and these are things that your doctor can help you with at home too. Poor liver or gastrointestinal function. So immune cells, the vast majority of our immune cells originate in the GI system. So if our GI system, which is all of our digestive organs, if it's underperforming, if it's underfunctioning, if it's stressed out for any reason, that's going to slow down the ability to create immune cells. Now our liver is a part of that digestive system and that GI system, and one of its major functions is the detection of pathogens. So the liver helps us determine, is there something foreign that's pathogenic, like a bacteria or a virus, that's invaded our body or that's traveling through our system? And if so, it helps to capture them and then clear them. So again, an underperforming liver is going to be slow to detect, slow to capture, and slow to clear pathogens. And on top of that, those pathogens, when they're captured and cleared, they're cleared into the rest of the GI tract, into the colon. So now if you have an underperforming colon, again, you're going to be slow to clear these things out. All of this compounds and compounds and compounds and creates more stress that gets put on our immune system, and our immune system weakens. So what is it that could actually stress out our liver and our GI system? This guy looks happy. He looks like he's having fun. But if you look here, it doesn't look like he's taking great care of himself either. He's got a little excess around the belly. That's a cortisol problem. Certainly he's having a beer, so he's taking something into his body that's likely stressing his liver, stressing his GI tract, right? Alcohol is a very common substance to put excess stress on the liver. Now, as I've mentioned before, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm a big fan of moderation, and I think if we are careful of what we do in life, we can moderate what we eat and drink and what we're around, and our bodies will adapt. But we've got to be very careful that moderation doesn't get taken to excess and start creating more stress on our organs and break us down. If we too much alcohol, too much tobacco, which puts stress on our digestive tract as well as our lungs, okay, now we're diminishing our immune capacity by doing those things. So if we're trying to improve our immune system, we want to create an avoidance to these things that could really stress us out. I mean, this guy looks like a guy you want to party with, but in the end, what's your immune system going to look like after all of that? Another thing is drug use, especially antibiotics. Now, this is a wide-ranging idea here, because when I talk about drug use, certainly recreational drugs fall into that category. Prescription medications can fall into that category. It's really a well-known fact that many medications can put an excess of stress on our liver, on our detox organs, and on our digestive organs. So we have to be really cautious of the things that we're taking, how much stress they're putting on our body, and if these are life-saving medications, then what do we have to do to then counteract that additional stress to make sure that our organs can keep up when our immune system needs to be firing on all cylinders? Antibiotics, that's really a big one because of the effect it has on the GI terrain and the good bacteria that exists within our digestive tract to help combat pathogens and combat negative bacteria or viruses. So there's good stuff that exists in our body that's designed to fight off the bad stuff. Antibiotics can destroy all of that, and then we have to rebuild once that process has occurred. So watching, moderating, and really getting some guidance on what you're taking and how you can counteract those effects is really important. The next thing we'll look at is inadequate sleep and exercise. So again, we live in a pretty stressful world. We're all busy. We've all got things to do, things that get in the way of us exercising, stressors that maybe we think about all the time at night, and maybe we're not getting enough sleep. And here's how that can affect our immune system negatively. Lack of sleep affects your ability to recover from illness and injury. Okay? The less sleep you get, the less time you have to repair. The majority of our repair processes happen overnight while we're asleep and while we're in a relaxed, deep state of sleep. It also decreases the production of protective cytokines and antibodies that help you overcome illness. So while we're asleep, our body is rebuilding these immune materials that are then going to float around the body and take care of things the next day when we're awake. Now, the word cytokine comes into play, and I know if you've watched some of the news on COVID-19 and seen some of what is the effect of the actual virus, there's a term called a cytokine storm, which means there's an increase of these potentially healing and potentially anti-inflammatory cytokines that can travel to certain areas of the body. And what happens with some viruses is those cytokines get created out of control, and there's way too many of them. So they're healing and they're helpful in certain quantities, but you can go over the top with them. Listen, getting a good night's sleep is not going to create too many cytokines. It's going to create the right amount. It's that when we're in the depths of sometimes an illness or a condition, the condition itself creates more of them. So don't get confused with a normal, healthy amount of cytokines and the increase that can happen if you have an active infection. Obviously, appropriate exercise makes our bodies stronger in general, makes our muscles stronger, makes our mind stronger. So our body will be more resistant and more resilient when we exercise and when we're stronger in that way. And that can help us overall ward off and overcome plenty of different types of illnesses and conditions. Additionally, proper exercise can benefit our production of disease-fighting white blood cells. So as we exercise, we actually create more white blood cells and antibodies as well. So our body is more adept at producing antibodies when we're physically active. Another great benefit is the flushing effect of bacteria and other things out of the lungs and airways, especially when we do heavy-duty cardiovascular exercise. And to be honest, even just high-impact interval training, short bursts of rapid exercise have been found to really pump stuff out of the lungs and improve our cardiovascular resistance. These can all be positive things when it comes to supporting our immune system. Again, don't get me wrong, too much exercise can put extra stress on the body, so really it's all about working with someone who can help you figure out the right amount of exercise that's good for you and just getting into a comfortable exercise routine for yourself. The next thing we'll discuss is diet. So a poor diet, especially a diet high in refined carbohydrates and saturated and trans fats, creates major stresses on our body and our immune systems in particular. Remember, 80% of our immune system resides in our gut. So if we're taking in foods that stress our gut, those foods are in turn stressing our immune system. Okay? Refined carbohydrates, saturated and trans fats, they're inflammatory, they're GI irritants, they create tissue damage. So we really want to be minimizing and or avoiding those types of foods, eating the healthiest foods that we possibly can. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment too. Not eating right creates nutritional deficiencies. So the nutrients that we need to, again, create these blood cells, to create this healthy environment that our immune system will grow in, is not going to happen if we don't eat the right vegetables and eat the right fruits and get the right minerals and get the right vitamins in. So a lack of essential vitamins and minerals is a key point here when we talk about nutritional deficiencies. These are the substances necessary for our everyday overall proper body function. And I gotta say, the standard American diet is typically lacking in fruits and vegetables the most, and it tends to be very high in refined carbohydrates. It tends to be higher in fats and not the good fats. And it tends to be pretty high in protein a lot of times as well. And protein, while it's good in some respects, antibodies and immunoglobulins are made from proteins, but too much protein is inflammatory in its nature. So let's look at some common immune supports that you can introduce on your own. Like I mentioned earlier, it's always best to work with someone who knows your body, who knows your health, and who can help you come up with a customized, individualized, healthy program for life. Those are the things that we do here at the Institute for Restorative Health. But some of the basic things, the most important things you can do on your own that just about anybody can try is including these common immune supports. Vitamin C is a real big one. Elderberry is another great thing to take. Now, I will caution on elderberry a little bit. Research shows that elderberry is great as a preventative against immune problems, but once you're in an active immune challenge or you have maybe an active infection, it's ideal to back away from the elderberry and go more towards things that will fight off the immune process, because elderberry can create some of those cytokines that, again, help your body in small amounts, but too much of them might be problematic. So it's safe to get away from those when you have an active immune challenge. Vitamin D, there's a lot of research, especially against or in conjunction with COVID-19, talking about how vitamin D could be very, very effective at helping to neutralize this virus. There's a tons of research online that you can look up on that. Echinacea is a great herb that's a very good immune booster overall, especially when it comes to viral issues. And another one is andrographis. This is a wonderful herb that has been found to have good healing effects, especially for the lungs. And there's some interesting research and interesting thought out there now that it could act as a cytokine reducer and act to protect the lungs, which are two really, really good things if COVID-19 is a stressor for you. Now, on the inflammatory side of things, there are also supports that you can take for some of these inflammasomes that tend to go wild in viral conditions especially. Curcumin and turmeric are two great things that are good for inflammation of all kinds throughout the body. They can help with joint inflammation, they can help with GI inflammation, they can help with swelling in different areas. They're actually very brain protective as well, which is another added bonus outside of the immune system. SOD stands for superoxide dismutase. It is an enzyme that's created in the body that works as an antioxidant, and it can help to neutralize free radicals. So it's a great thing to take. Again, that's one that you might want to take in moderation and have some assistance in addressing how much to take, because you wouldn't want to overdo that. But it's a great antioxidant, great free radical neutralizer. Glutathione, also getting a lot of press, and I think I see some research coming on glutathione's effects on the lung tissues and how it is very protective for the lungs overall. So in keeping your lungs healthy and keeping your airways healthy, as well as the effect that it has on the liver for detoxification. So that whole challenge of pathogens coming in and being able to detect them, to being able to capture them and clear them, glutathione has a huge role in all of that. So these are some of the things that you can implement on your own to help support your immune system. So ultimately, we're told there's a lot of ways that we can protect ourselves, in this age of pandemics and with what's going on in the world around us. But I'm here to tell you that I want you to know you have more control over your immune system than you might be currently led to believe. These are things that you can address. These are things that you can be aware of and be cognizant of and be making changes in your lifestyle and in your habits on a daily basis to help protect your immune system. Okay? We make choices every day that affect our health and that affect the health of those around us. And it's super important to make the best choices. Make the choices that are best for you and for your family and for those around you. Danger lurks around every corner. There are buses out of control on streets. There are wildfires that happen all over the country. There are accidents that happen all the time. The danger is everywhere. It's around every corner. We can choose to live our lives in fear, or we can take control of our thoughts and actions and put the best actions into place to keep ourselves and our family and our loved ones healthy. I implore you, choose to enjoy the life you were meant to have. Thanks.